People, you know that sound is the Unfiltered Band. It means another episode of Unfiltered coming your way here and now, live. If you're with us on Spotify, Apple, anywhere else you get your podcast, belated, they're just as good as well. You can jump on board anytime. The Unfiltered Revolution. Get me on Twitter at Casey Stern. Officially, this will go down as episode 111 of Unfiltered, an October Unfiltered live. And thank you, Unfiltered Band. As always, we were presented by our good friends at Bet Online. We'll get to them in a couple of minutes. Lots to get to on this show. 3 ways to watch us live throughout the course of the World Series until the conclusion of the season at noon Eastern. Get on my YouTube, Believe's YouTube, on Twitter, all across social media. And then, of course, where the pod is. We've got a big episode today. This is where it is. If you're looking for a preview for the World Series, Matt Holliday, Jason Stark still to come on the show. My buddy Todd Frazier here in a couple of minutes. As always, we thank the folks at Bet Online. Basketball's back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at Bet Online, your continued source for all sports wagering information. I've got live betting, free contests, giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet your favorite sports and events, whether it's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Just get over to betonline.ag. That's betonline.ag. You join and get your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. You have to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV to receive your rewards. It's Bet Online where the game starts. We've gotten started all week. As I said, 4 hours of preview the day of the Super Bowl. We all are, big and bloated and fat by the time the game even comes around. So what's a week of World Series preview going to do to us? Nothing. We're used to it. So an hour a day, here we are. And I get a chance to welcome in my buddy Todd Frazier, Flavor Frazier, to join me here to open the show. Hello, sir. Oh, I love the backdrop. What's up, dude?
What's going on, brother? Yeah, that's for you, big. And then the home run derby.
I love that. I love that because the last couple of times I got you in the kitchen, which I'll tell you, by the way, is actually a nice spot comparatively to John Gibbons, Gibby, the former Jays manager, who joined me on the show 2 days ago from his bed, with his wife in the bed at his in-laws' place. So, he just living the good life. So
I don't mind that. I'm not.
Me neither. Hey, look, that's why it's called Unfiltered. How you been, man? You good?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. Just trying to set up my football, and then we got baseball practice still, and that's what I'm doing. A lot of fun.
I love that. I want to start here. What's been kind of your vantage point as you've watched this postseason play out? What stood out to you, whether it's one of the two teams here or anything overall? I mean, what's kind of been your overall take on watching this postseason 2022, Todd, setting up Astros Philly so far?
Yeah, the pitching was the start of it. I mean, pitching was dominant, and then you see the Phillies come hitting. The bullpens, I think the bullpens have been absolutely on everybody's team, starting with San Diego, even though they didn't move on. The bullpen was Phillies. I mean, they came through with Sir Anthony and all these guys. Alvarez, they're just so, I mean, the biggest thing is what I'm seeing is good hitting, going to be good pitching. That's the case right there we've got to talk about.
And two managers, obviously, that, I know you and anybody who's ever had any touch and feels, they say with other these guys, just roots for them to no end. So I want to get into that a little bit. Let me start here and go back before I get to the series and go to kind of where the Yankees were, because you sat there. It's unbelievable that, still we're sitting here, and Lance McCullers, who I think it was in the game 7 in that series way back when you were with the Yankees, still pitching big games for this team. Obviously, people talk about all the garbage cans and things that happened because Bregman and Altuve are still there. But does it amaze you that, look, there's a Pena now, there's a Tucker, there's a McCormick, a Framber Valdez. Like, what does it say about this organization from afar, Todd, to watch that they're still, sure, some of the horses you faced in that big series in an LCS going back 5 years ago, but the fact that they're there every year and finding a way to change their parts along the way?
Yeah, great baseball. And, kudos to their breast. They found the right with Jordan Alvarez. I mean, Jesus. I mean, what a series he had in the beginning, and in the Yankee series. But he's that one guy where if he gets hot, it's him. Altuve still hasn't gotten hot. Bregman still doing what he does. It's a phenomenal group, and it starts with Dusty Baker, our favorite man. with him at the helm leading, I could see the excitement. I saw the post game back, and he's got a really good feeling about this Houston Astro team. So I will see what happens.
Obviously my affinity for him. I know how much you love him. I want to get into that here for a minute because I know how big he was in your career, and I know you've told this story to me before, but I always feel like the stories about Dusty that I love Todd the most are just how he finds a way to reach every player. Take, for those who haven't heard you discuss this with me before, your slump at a point that really changed your entire career. You tell me if I'm overstating that, and what Dusty's hand was and kind of giving it to you the way it needed to be to get you to kind of right that ship for you before you went on to having a great career.
Yeah, my second year, man, I was struggling. I was over 31. I mean, anybody who struggled in life, and I mean, let's paint an over 31 picture. That's like going over 31 and getting people to use your product. The boss is going on, so he kind of gave me a kick in the ass a little bit. He's like my dad, hey, get your head out of your butt. Let's go here, man. We know how good you are. Look, you're somebody, the management's looking at somebody else, whether they were or not, I don't know. It kind of got me going, fired me up again, and then I went about it. And management wasn't looking anywhere else. So it was but I understood what my capabilities were, and I needed that. Every once in a while, you get complacent and what have you. And I thank Dusty every day, man, because I don't know if it would have happened. You never know.
And he's just a different dude that way. I've talked about this plenty on the show, Todd. I mean, his understanding of players, because he was one. And look, you don't have to be. Look, I think about it, and I know you're a hoops guy like I am. Eric Spoelstra was a video guy for the Heat. He's a Hall of Fame coach now, right? So you don't have to be necessarily. But how much of a difference does it make for these players that here's a dude who hit behind Hank Aaron, is sitting there on deck in the lineup, has been through all these moments? How much different and advantageous is that when you're in a postseason, especially, and when you're in big moments, that that guy's not just telling you what you should do. He knows because he's been through those experiences before.
Yeah, it comes down to one, trust. I mean, if a guy is putting you in this spot for a reason, you got to have trust. And who better to say it than trust in that guy? If you're going to second guess what he says, you better find a different respect. The guy that's been there before, listen, you think about all the questions. Hey, could he play in this era? Yeah, most of them could. But at the same time, those dudes that understand back in the day era and this era, and where he goes because he's done it before and he's done it well. So why not?
Certainly, you think about the Astros, they're so loaded. Their pitching is so deep. How much is that the biggest factor you see in this series? I mean, because here's the thing, Todd, and you know this. I mean, you ride horses at the front end, and Philly's got them too. And the Yankees had Garrett Cole, who pitched very well, did what he could. I mean, he's taken out of the game earlier than he should have been in one spot. And they seem to have all the other answers. I mean, when's the last time we've ever seen any kind of team, even the team you faced going back to 17, that they didn't have this kind of depth. The depth on this pitching depth, Luis Garcia's thrown 6 innings in an 18-inning game to beat the Mariners in Game 3. Is that the biggest factor you see when you look at the difference between these two teams in this series?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with, the starters. I mean, your best players getting after. I feel like if the Astros get on the button, it's pretty much ball game. As weird as that sounds, and then it turns over. I mean, we saw in the Yankee series, it was 2-0. They made it 4-2. I mean, if they get 2 runs or more, it's like being up 8. Franmar and all these guys coming in. One from the left side. You got Verlander. It seems like it's guaranteed 2 W's right there. And if they get the pitcher go 7 or 6 or 5, I want to see Frank. I want to see Valdez on the road. I just want to see. I don't think it'll be that. Just really well at home. If there's a chance he has to pitch in Philly with that raucous crowd, I think Philly has to get 1 win in Houston for them to survive.
Let me ask you about that Philly crowd. You played in New York. I know it's not old Yankee Stadium. You played, obviously, Citi Field. It's not Shea, but still, those are both pretty crazy environments. You were there for crazy environments in both of those places. You played on the road against the Phillies many, many times. I know they weren't having the heyday at the time like they did go back to like 08, 09 when they're in the World Series back-to-back years when you're sitting there with the Mets and playing them. But what is different about Citizens Bank and that fan base as a player? And how much are you sitting there watching that saying that's just a different beast? Because I'm sitting there in the postseason. You know, I'm a New Yorker through and through, right? And I know you're a Jersey guy. I know how we are. But I'm looking at that thing saying anybody who thinks that's not the best atmosphere we've seen in the postseason, crazy. You with me on that?
Yeah. It's a small stadium. So the fans are going to be on top of you. Philadelphia Eagles game, the year before they won the playoff, they played the Vikings ago. And I tell you what, if you wore purple that day, you were getting bombarded. I think this old lady, she got crushed by people, whether it was name calling or yelling who you are in there. They're passionate about their crowd or their team, city. And it is, I remember seeing the replays. Fans are standing the whole. I see that at a soccer match sometimes.
The whole game, Todd. The whole game.
They're hungry. They're hungry for a championship again, and the playing there, getting one win out of Houston and playing their 3 straight out. Man, I don't see them losing it at home. It's just insane.
Yeah, look, I don't want to get on certain fan base. Like, players don't like to do it. I'll do it. I remember 2007 covering the NLCS, and Brandon Webb's on the mound. He got 2 outs in the first inning, and they got to put on the scoreboard to tell people at Chase Field to stand up, right? So this is like, okay, so I've seen not every place like this. This is a different animal in Philadelphia. I want to go back to New York for a second before I get to the Phillies on 2 fronts. I want to ask you about Rob Thompson, but Judge, I know how much you love him, and I know we've talked about this before on the show. An amazing season, an unbelievable year where he bet on himself. Kind of 2-part. How tough was it? Because you know how big it would have been for him to watch him go through what he went through in the postseason. And how much do you think he might have been, even if he doesn't say it, just mentally exhausted from what he had gone through in that finish of that season? Because I'm thinking human element. From me, I'd be passed out rather than playing in a postseason.
Yeah, listen, as much as it was an awesome thing, and I would never change this season, everybody was just, at the end of the year, hit a home run. I think everybody was just trying to get on base for him to hit a home run. He did. You could feel like, man, relief. Instead of yourselves and playing team baseball, I think that kind of, they barely got by the Guardians, in 5 games. So you just saw they just ran out of gas, man. At the end of the day, they ran out of gas. They had a couple injuries, Nestor Cortez or whatever. They're missing DJ LeMahieu and Benintendi, and I just think through the whole season for him, bet on yourself. Good for you, bro, because that's so hard to do. He's going to get this. It's going to be teams chomping at the bits, and they're, what Cohen did, a lot of, presidents and GMs are saying, like, listen, who cares about the tax? If we want to win a championship, our money's good. Let's go get somebody. Yankees are in trouble, man. If you want the truth, Cashman's got an uphill battle with it. It didn't work out together. They butt heads in spring training trying to figure everything out. Awesome. Take what you want to say for the postseason. Okay, what are you going to do besides Rizzo and Bader? So it's a team effort, but it's the way the season goes.
Todd, I do and you're never supposed to do it, the if George was alive thing. You're not supposed to do that. But I try to explain to people that when I grew up watching him, and people think it's a joke, like you open up the New York Post, there's a letter where he's apologizing to the fans for how much the team sucked. Like, literally, like Judge would have never been a free agent if George was there. He would have been a Yankee and still would be. I'm sure the Yankees will give everything they can. But you mentioned the Mets, and I think the San Francisco Giants are going to be the biggest problem because that ownership, they tried to get Bryce, even when Farhan Zaidi came in, and his whole job was to get rid of contracts. The ownership still, because they like stars and they want to win, and that's to me, it's the best park in the league, I think. And Judge from the area, how shocked will you be? I mean, lay it down for me. I don't want to give you you put it at north of 50, 50-50, south of 50, just your own gut. How shocked would you be if Judge is not a Yankee next year?
50-50 shock, just because if somebody, I mean, disrespectful at the end of the day. If you feel like you're worth a certain way, and the guy comes back at a low ball price, what was it, 213? I don't know what he was looking for. Probably north of a little over
Got to be
3.
north of 3. Got to be north of 3.
Yeah, I would say 320, 330, whatever. When you feel disrespected, man, one, you want to go out and prove yourself, which you did. Forget it. From where we're from, that one guy that comes and disrespect, I'll be nice to you, but at the same time, I'll never forget. So, I mean, for him, and he's from California, dude. That's the biggest thing that people like.
That's what happened to Freddie Freeman, Todd. That's what happened to Freddie. The Braves let him hang out there. He went home.
Is it his best interest to stay with the Yankees, to win a champion, good enough to, build and win a championship? If they get judged, they need more pieces. Aaron, I'm looking for a team right now that can win a championship. I mean, he's 20 more good years does he have? 5 to 6 years? I mean, listen. So it's like, do you want to win a championship? Are the Yankees built to do that next year?
Yeah, look, and do they have the right personnel? Do they have the right people running the team? I mean, they got plus look, they won 100 games twice, went home. In the shortened season, they had the best team, went home, right? So they got home a lot. I mean, I hate to say, you were there in 2017, they easily could have won. You're up 3-2. They went home also. I want to ask you about that specifically. And by the way, I want to say this quickly because Todd's the player here. I'm not. And let me tell people, anybody who says, well, $213 million is a lot of money. What do you mean? If you could make $350 million, and I don't care if you make $23 an hour and you could make 35, if you make 5 and you could make 10, it is all relative to who you are. And so I got no problem with that. And you're dead on. I mean, it's about $100 million less that he should have been offered. Rob Thompson, such a lifer, so long with the Yankees. I know you're there a short time when he's the bench coach back in 2017, right before he left. But how much did you see? He's so beloved by players. What is it about him that's different, Todd? How much did you see that this could be something that he could be really good at in terms of running a baseball team?
Yeah, his interaction for a hitter. The team meetings we had, he ran the whole show. I mean, his attention to detail was top notch. He's loves the game. He's going to sit at home, talk about the game, go crossing his teeth and dotting his I's, and he's very smart. I remember the one game where they I think he brought in the lefty Alvarado, Alvarez, I forget.
Alvarado. Yeah, Alvarado.
And I'm sitting there with Tim Kirchin. We're watching way too early, and next thing you know, they didn't give up a run in the next 4 innings. Of course, only Rob would do that and understand, and he just came on pretty much halfway through, if not a little less than that. So he gets it, and with the tutelage, I mean, he was under Joe Girardi for stood each other, and they work well together. And now Rob's just taking off that long time after this, whether they win or lose.
Last thing for you, Bryce, competing against him, what stood out in terms of that made you just respect the way the guy plays, and how much does that lead to you not being surprised that he's doing what he's doing in Philly right now?
Yeah, he's got ice in his veins, man. Always whether he's out in front or not, it's the same ferocious swing. He's trying to crush us. He's done it as a young kid in numerous all-star appearances. The guy just gets it, man. Nothing seems to faze him. I'm like, if this guy would just throw him 3 straight off-speed pitches, I'm wing mode, but he was on everything. So I'm not surprised. He's a fun guy to watch, and I'm happy for him.
Todd, appreciate you. Thank you for doing this, buddy. And by the way, I just want to let you know that the Bucks have not been great, and the Giants are 6-1. Just want to put that out there for you.
You can have it this year, but I'm done. I'm done with everybody in that.
Oh yeah, what are you? I don't even want. I don't even want to hear that with you. Appreciate you, Frazier. Thank you, buddy.
Have a good one.
There he is, my dude, one of the greats in the game. Appreciate him. Todd Frazier for joining us here on the show for a few minutes. Speaking of greats, you can find him at The Athletic, host of the Starkville Pod, and a guy who certainly knows a thing or two about that city of Philadelphia among all the other things and numbers he knows, my guy Jason Stark. And speaking of which, thank you so much for a few minutes on a busy time. Jason, appreciate you, buddy. How are you?
Casey, doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Let me start with this because I was just talking to Todd about Bryce. You've talked to him a ton, followed his career, covered him. I saw the great story. The evolution of what's happened to him is kind of so amazing. What stands out to you most watching him now come through with these moments and resonate with that city like a glove the way he has in Philly?
He's in the right place. He could have gone to a lot of different cities, a lot of different teams in 2019. And he chose the right town, the right fan base, because I've thought this for a long time, Casey. The passion of the player matches the passion of the people. And I don't know if somebody coached him, Jason Worth, Scott Boras, his dad, whoever it was, on what it takes to get along with people in Philadelphia. But he's said everything right. He's done everything right. And now he just hit a home run for the storybooks and the history books. So he's an all-time Philadelphia icon, and he'll go down as one of the most beloved Philadelphia athletes ever. It's a short list.
You had a great column on the what ifs that anybody should check out if they haven't already. A couple of days ago. I want to ask you specifically about Rob Thompson, because here's the crazy part about our sport. Joe Girardi is a terrific baseball man, a terrific manager. And just like with players in locker rooms, with coworkers in offices, because we dumb it down to everybody, right? All of us who aren't players, you have to have fits. What has made Rob Thompson such a perfect fit to be such a huge part of this turnaround this season?
Yeah, it really has been the fit. I thought that almost from day one. I wonder what Joe Girardi's thinking now. I know that it's easy to make a judgment that Joe and what's happened in Philadelphia are some kind of reflection of the fact that Joe Girardi isn't good at his job. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. But Rob Thompson is a stabilizer. Joe is a guy in the last year of his contract. He was very conscious of that. I think it heightened tension when this team got off to a bad start, and everybody felt it. And when Rob Thompson walked in the door, he just brought stability to the group. He has a unique ability to transmit belief and confidence to baseball players. And he doesn't even have to do it with words. I've seen him do it in all kinds of ways. And just that stability that he has brought to that clubhouse and the way they play, the way young players have fit, the way guys have felt free to have fun and be themselves, I think has been a big part of this. But we also shouldn't underestimate the fact that he's a guy who managed 1,000 games in the minor leagues and was around great managers on coaching staffs in the big leagues, and just has a great feel for running the game and putting people in the right place to succeed. It's been an incredible story to watch, because Rob is not a guy with a big personality, but he's had a big impact on the group.
And and I think Joe Girardi's terrific, and I think he's a terrific guy and a terrific manager. But to your point, I think you're so dead on about letting the players be themselves. Joe's got the big track record as a manager. Joe's in a spot where, it seemingly from the outside, going to, I don't want to use the word forceful, but certainly he has his ideas and ways of doing things. And Rob Thompson seems to have those ears, right? Which I have big, cans on right now. But the listening skills, you hear the players, they love him because they trust him, because it seems like this open relationship, but it also is in the room. And Kyle Schwarber and what he's done, it just jumps off the page. How about the story of Schwarber and the leadership and what happened in Boston, Jason, in that short time, and now what he's done in Philly, and really what he's become? I remember not too long ago, you and I and everybody else was sitting there at a World Series saying he had 2 AFL at bats and he doubled off Kluber. Like, you remember, it was like Roy Hobbs. Like, how is this happening? how much impact behind the scenes has what Schwarber is and about helped then mesh and be an extension, almost like a point guard in the NBA, to what Rob Thompson's trying to do, Jason?
Yeah, people gravitate to that guy, and it's a big part of why the Phillies were so attracted to him. Dave Dombrowski got this job right around Thanksgiving in 2020. He had a very short offseason. He didn't make a lot of big moves or a lot of big changes initially. What Dave does best is he spends so much time around his team. He watches, he listens, he feels it. He doesn't miss anything. And he came away thinking that what that team really lacked was someone who had been there, someone who had done it, and someone who could lead in a way that maybe wasn't apparent so much on the outside, but was so important on the inside because Kyle Schwarber just has one of those personalities. Um, when you walk in the clubhouse, it's incredible how many people are gathered around that guy. They're so interested in what he sees, what he thinks, what he's done, where he's been, what he's learned, how he can help. He relates to the youngest player in the room. He relates to the oldest player in the room. He relates to the guys who are just running by him on the field on the other team. I went to a Phillies Braves game early in the year where there was a disputed trap catch call in right field, and Kyle Schwarber was the runner on second. He watched the play. He tagged up. He went to third. The umpires ruled triple play because it was a catch, right? And he knew that wasn't true. So he stopped every Brave from running off the field, and he stopped the umpires, and he told them, review this. I'm safe. I'm not out. It's not a triple play. And what I noticed was you had 7 Braves players. As they were running off the field, they stopped, and they're all hanging out with Kyle Schwarber because people just like being around that guy. Just something about him.
It reminds me of the Red Sox when they had their flip of the script, and their first 2 moves of an offseason were David Ross and Johnny Gomes. And, the importance of those kind of guys, I know different players in terms of impact, but the impact of those kind of guys on teams like this. You've covered so many World Series. Have you ever seen depth of pitching, the likes of what the Astros have? We've seen maybe more top flight starters in a game 3 or a 4, right? But overall, have you ever seen depth like this? And how do you try and put it into words to explain it?
Well, they played an 18-inning game against the Mariners. Remember that, right? It was 1-0 in 18 innings. And afterwards, Doug Glanville and I had their 2 great color analysts, Steve Sparks and Jeff Blum, on our Starkville podcast. And I can't remember which one of them made this point. They could have kept going for 30 innings. 18 that seemed like a lot. They had pitchers lined up that could have gotten them through 10, 12 more innings. Jose Urquidy hadn't pitched. Ryan Stanek, who had an incredible year, hadn't pitched. Those 2 guys have barely pitched in the whole postseason.
And not needed. And not needed, Jason. I mean, it's
exactly. It's been an odd postseason for the Astros because they've had twice as many days where they haven't played in October as days where they have. So they haven't even had to utilize their depth, except a game here, game there. And it seems like it's such a huge advantage for them going into this World Series. The one thing I wonder about with all the days of rest is, doesn't rest always benefit the team that's least deep? It allowed the Phillies to put their starting pitching back in order so that Nola Wheeler's start games 1, 2. It allows their bullpen to rest and recover, and the travel days will help them rest and recover. So I do think it minimizes the depth advantage that you would normally see in this World Series, but it's still hard for me to pick against the Astros, even coming from Philadelphia, because I see so clearly how they've got the right pitcher for every matchup. And the Phillies have been able to score runs against the weak links in the staffs of the teams they played. What's the weak link on the Astros?
Yeah, you can't find one. I've said this before, Jason. They got answers for answers and questions you don't even know
Yeah.
exist. I mean, that's how you get 18 innings in a game like they did against Seattle and find a way. Appreciate you. Thanks so much, especially on a busy day, for doing this for me. Safe travels out to Houston. Enjoy the series, Jason. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Case. Always a pleasure, man.
Appreciate you, my friend. There he is, Jason Stark, as good as it gets as terms of people and in this business. Appreciate him for hopping on board. You can hop on board with us, the Unfiltered Revolution, at Casey Stern on Twitter. Throughout, of course, welcome to all those who are listening live or watching live, whether it be on YouTube on my channel, Believes, or on Twitter at Casey Stern. You can chat with us along the way. It's simple. There's 3 ways to do that. If you're on YouTube, you'll see the chat box open up. If you're on Twitter and you're watching live, you can then click that box and you'll see at the bottom there that you can chime in and you could chat with you, as I just put here, right there along the way. And we'll get your quotes and comments and questions and all sorts of things along the way. Matt Holliday going to join me in just a couple of minutes. I want to comment quickly on a couple of things that were just said by the 2 guests thus far. First of all, with Todd Frazier on Aaron Judge, because I know a lot of people sit there and they don't get it. And I said this about Pujols. I covered this when this was happening every day, and fans in St. Louis were driving me crazy and going nuts about the fact that when he went to the Angels, he took $50 million more. And I said the same thing, and I've said this a million times, and I apologize to people listening to me on radio 20 years have seen this a million times, but take a blank piece of paper if you got one. Take out religious and moral things, because nobody should ever compromise any of that for anything related to money. Now I want you to sit there and write on the paper all the things you wouldn't do if I told you you had to do X, Y, or Z, and I'd hand you $50 million. I'll wait. There's nothing. Now imagine 100. Now imagine 150, which may be the difference between what Judge was offered and what he makes. There's nothing on the list. It's not about, hey, is $213 million enough? I'm never going to know what stats like to make that kind of money. Neither are most of you. No idea. But I'm on the player's side with this kind of stuff and have been for years, because it's all relative. I always use the same joke. I used to say this for years on the air. I remember my first job, I was in a drugstore stocking like Kotex with wings and other crap. Massapequa, Long Island. Shout out to Harmon Drugs. Doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think. I'm making like $4.50. I think was minimum. I was 15 years old. Was minimum wage at the time. If somebody over at Rite Aid, or at the time there was Genevieve's and CVS or wherever, around the corner would have offered me $5, which is 50 cents more an hour. I'm working 10 hours a week. I mean, I was in school, right? Not a lot of money, 30, 40 bucks a week. That's before taxes. I'm gone. I love you guys. Thank you. But I'm down the block. I'll give you the rest of the day. You ain't getting 2 weeks. You're making $100,000. Somebody offers you $200,000. It's an extra $100,000, right? So it's not about, is it enough money? It's about just how much more money is it? It's about, what is the respect level comparatively to what other people are making in your profession and getting paid? And who the hell else is doing what Aaron Judge just did? Nobody. Still getting paid. And I'm not going to sit there and say the Yankees are, in trouble in terms of, can they bring him back? They're going to try their darndest, but it's not going to be a solo show with that. And we'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes. Also, I want to, kind of read back and circle back into this series as we sit now 2 days away of the Phillies and the Stros getting together. And I get to chat with one of my favorite people in the game, hopping on board with me here live, Matt Holliday. Matt, appreciate you, buddy. How are you?
What's up, Casey?
What's going on, man? I know. First of all, I appreciate you doing this and giving me this spot. Please settle in. That's my fault. I'll tell you what I told Todd Frazier joined me earlier. No matter where you join me, it's good, because John Gibbons joined me from his bed with his wife when he came on the podcast a couple of days ago, which is, anybody who knows him, not shocking, but at the same time, so you're comfortable wherever you are after workout. I appreciate you. I want to get into the series, but I got to start here because I know how close you are to him. Skip Schumacher gets the job yesterday with the Marlins. How pumped are you for him? And I'm sure you've talked to him. How excited is he about this opportunity? Because he's obviously deserved it now for a few years running.
Yeah, I mean, I love Skip. Skip's one of my closest friends. Can't say enough good things. Casey, I think it's been a little bit of a, son and his daughter kind of getting into this close to high school range. I didn't know being all the way in Florida, and his home base is in California. But I have a chance to manage, and there's only 30 of those. For him to get a chance to manage a team and kind of take that next step in his career, I'm really excited for him. And I know that they have. I'll be interested to see, what it looks like and how they're going to better their team. It looks like their offense is a little light. But as far as Skip manager, I think he's destined for that. I think he's an awesome human, but he's got to, being I guess manager, but also demanding, sort of a high level effort, and I think that the way he played and the way that his work ethic did, what he'll demand from the players while also having that balance of being able and identify with what they're going through, I think is going to be a really good mix.
And he's also, Matt, this, been around and played for and now coached for some real good managers who you learn things from different people. You learn what to do. Sometimes you learn from managers what not to do, right, when you play for them. So he's got a lot of that experience, and I wish him the best. Looking forward to seeing that in Miami. I want to hit a number of things, but I got to start here because and it's not even from people in Colorado on this show in the last 2 weeks with the layoff conversation. And it's been a big one because of what happened to the Dodgers and what happened to the Braves. That 2017 was brought up, I don't even know how many times, by me and many other people who were around it daily during that year, because I saw other situations where, and twice with Jim Leland, the second time he dealt with it, he took them all down to Lakeland to give them simulated at-bats in spring training to try and fix it up. It didn't work. The layoff was too much. Your team wins, 21 out of 22 days. I remember, going through Philly, you go through Arizona, and then you just sit there. And other than yourself, I mean, a lot of the bats went quiet come World Series time. That's as good a layoff example as there is. How much do you think the layoffs really hurt teams like the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves from the experiences you went through?
Replicating the intensity, you can try to play the simulated games, at bats. You just can't, when you're playing your teammates and you're trying to create this, hitters don't want to hit their own position. It's not the same. And so I think that there is, I guess, for hitters, there's this momentum of playing every day, and even as a team vibe of you have this edge where every day is a must win, and every day you're being fed this adrenaline and this gotta win this game, and then all of a sudden it stops. In our case, 8 days, I guess, in the Dodgers and Braves, some of this new format, 5 or 6 days. It's hard to create and keep that moment, and then you roll back out, and the first, sort of kind of, you're trying to get your feet back underneath playing, and so with the Red Sox, they just like punched us in the face right away. I mean, I think we gave up 2 or 3 or 4 runs, and it's like our bearings underneath us, and kind of get back in the rhythm, and before you know it, they're and taking the momentum, and next thing you know, you're down 2-0, and then you're trying to, get it. You're swept, and we got swept in 4 games. And were they better than us? Probably. But the way we were playing and the momentum we had, what that series might have looked like if we had a day off instead of 8. And I think the energy, the momentum, the rhythm of, and as baseball days off, you never take 8 days off, once the season starts up. So no excuses. That's just the system that we play with, and there's nothing you can do about it. You do the best that you can to be ready, and no excuses. That's just,
I always put it this way, and I'm not great at math, but I know this math makes sense. You get 18 total days off in a season, and then you got 8 in a row, or they got 5 or 6 in a row. Just imagine. I mean, that sounds exactly as it is in terms of how different that it is. I want to take you back to what you remember, though, from that experience. There's so many players who have never been through this, even though you've got the Altuves and the Bregmans and Alvarez and guys there who have certainly been there. Most of the Astros were there a year ago. From Bryce on down the line outside of Schwarber, a lot of the Phillies, if not all of them, have not been, who are going to take ABs. What do you remember feeling leading up to your first at-bat in a World Series, and how different was the experience, and in what way than what you thought it was going to be like, Matt? Take me back to that.
I think the energy, leading up to it, the excitement, the World Series, and just the atmosphere around practice coverage and the people, and just the buzz of being part of the World Series was, you just feel this excitement and sort of this anticipation as you wait to play it's just different than anything you've felt as an athlete, as far as just the anticipation stage of something you've always dreamed about as a kid and you've always wanted to be part of, and all chance to leading up to the World Series. I think that the best thing, in case they have 4 or 5 days off, is to not tire yourself out, with this anticipation in your soul that it just doesn't stop for 4 or 5 days, because you're and like you said, it's probably much less for Bregman and Altuve and some of these series experience now. But for the guys that have never played in it, you feel like by the time, and you have to be able to control that emotion leading up to the game. On game days, these games don't start until later at night, so you have all this all day. You wake up and you just want to, you have all these things leading up to it, and then you finally get to batting practice, and then you have the introductions, and it of what you're used to out of whack, and you just want to get to the game, because once the competition starts and it's you and the pitcher, that feels way more normal than the game. So I think once you get in there and the first pitch is thrown and you feel environment and you're back to competing, it feels more normal than everything else. But every play is heightened by 20 compared to even through the playoffs. Now you're in the World Series, and every side that game, which could decide the entire World Series, and so it's exhausting mentally. It's so much fun but once the game's over, man, you're gassed, like you're mentally and physically, and you need the rest that so that you can get. It's so exciting. I remember being in Boston, obviously a great atmosphere, franchise, and just the amount of sort of
Matt, when you sit there and chat with Matt Holliday, when you think about, go back to, you saw as a competitor the beginning of Bryce's career, and Bryce Harper. Look, I said this yesterday, and I mean this because I think it's a real comp. When you take on social media and this era, really, other than LeBron, there aren't many other comps to what this guy blew a kiss after a home run in the minors at some point. I don't even remember when. He was like 18. People were giving him crap for it. I remember being at the first All-Star game. He's in the Futures game, and there were people saying that people were telling him how to know his role when he walked through because they had only heard stories. I saw at a Futures game he overthrew a cutoff man, and people write articles, "Oh, this is who." Like, he dealt with it in a different level. You heard all the buzz and the hubbub as he came in, right? He's being 1-1 there with Trout. What's impressed you most about the way that he has turned his career into now this supreme Hall of Fame level kind of caliber path now that he's on?
Casey, you're talking about, I think he got to the big leagues at 19. I think he went to junior college like at 16 or just a very kind of rare, like you talked about. You talk about LeBron. You talk about people that were rated at 16, 17 years old. Sort of this put on this pedestal. They can't make any mistakes without being criticized or even written articles and major. I think there was a knock on him for running into the wall in LA. Like that somehow effort that was too much. Or that he need to learn how to control himself. And when you're put on that pedestal, you get all the praise, but on the other people trying to tear it down. And so I think how he's handled all this, and yeah, did he young, immature things, maybe younger. Of course, he was, 19 years old.
No, so did we all. We all did.
Yeah.
Right.
So part of the thing about being that at such a young age, right, is that people are nitpicking, tearing down, but he's matured. I tell you, D-Row and some of these guys that have kind of taken him under his wing. Jason Worth credit for kind of teaching him how to, play the game. I think now as he's advanced, as he's played in the big leagues now, it seems like maybe 10 or whatever.
Like forever. He's like King Felix level. Like, how long has this guy been playing, right?
Yeah. So I think he's just weathered the storm, so to speak, and is playing. He's gotten better. His swing mechanics are better. I think elbow injury. He's played all season with a torn UCL or a partial tear or whatever. I'm really impressed, Casey, with obviously his maturation and but yeah, just kind of weathering the storm and kind of sitting and we have the same agent, and so I know a lot of the same. I wouldn't say we're friends, but I'm friends with one of his really good friends, and so I hear kind of about his maturation, just where he is now compared to maybe when he was that young kid that was a little kid, had the right to be at 19 years old when you're in the major leagues hitting homers. You're feeling pretty good about it. I think he's come a long way, and he's obviously been fun to watch this post.
Yeah, to your point, Matt, I said this yesterday, and I've talked to Scott openly about this on the air. Bryce was in a position where people don't realize, yeah, you get a 13-year deal, but he could have made $45-50 million a year to the Giants or the Dodgers, who were bidding for him for 3-4 years, been still in his prime, turned around and made more money. And he wanted a contract where I can't get out. I'm going to be like, that was like, to me, I admire that. I mean, here's a situation where a guy really had a plan and has had that now relationship with Philadelphia go to another level. I want to go back, and you mentioned, we talk about, contracts, and think about Aaron Judge, who you and I have talked about, how fond of him that you are, and, a guy you played with and a friend of yours, and getting to watch him now put together a historic season. You know what those ABs are like way better than I do and almost anybody else would. How much do you think it took out of him going into the postseason, mentally going through what he must have been with that cauldron on him with those home runs at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and only people that have experienced that kind of the noise of that and what kind of toll that took on him physically and mentally. I don't want to speak into what he might have affected. It couldn't have been easy, and it is exhausting mentally when you're trying to get to that home run and then move past it and now focus on the postseason. And he's such a level-headed guy that he probably handled it and with it better than almost everybody else.
Agreed, especially in New York.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it does empty the gas tank, right? You only have so much emotional energy every day to bring to the table, and so I'm sure. But as you know, once you get to the postseason, and he's the guy that after the meeting, and they said, Judge won't beat us. And you're facing the best pitcher, the nastiest pitches, and you're the guy that they're not going to let beat you. It's that, sort of big time home run, every at bat Purdue, because they're just not willing to give in and let you. Did he get a couple pitches to hit that maybe? But I think primarily, he was the guy that every pitcher went out to make my best pitches to him, and if I walk him, shoot, the heck with it. And so the postseason is a tough time to hit. You're facing the best of the best, and so it's I'm interested to see where ends up, Casey.
Would you be shocked? How shocked, Mac? How shocked would you be if he's not a Yankee?
Well, I think once you get to this point, be shocked. Now, you told me a year ago, you asked me this question. You said, would you be shocked if he doesn't take it? Yeah, I'd be shocked. But now, once you get to this point, now people in with the red carpet, and here comes the red carpet from the Giants, from the Mets. Here comes the red carpet from the Dodgers. All of a sudden, you let people their cast a vision of what their plan is for you and their organization, and what you're and this is what we think of you. Now all of a sudden you've allowed him to be like to play close to home in San Francisco, or play closer to home with Dodgers and all these great players, or whatever the Mets want to pay Aaron Judge, because money is no object, and you still live in New York, you're in baseball, and so you allow somebody to dream on what this get all the way to free agency. So I wouldn't be shocked if I don't have any information, but
no, of course not. No,
at this point, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, look, me neither, and I think especially because San Francisco, I think it's 1-1 in terms of the atmosphere in the park, and it's a place that they're going to have a lot of money and stars play, and it's a great place to play. So it'll be interesting where they factor in. I got two more quickies for you. One, I know it was a short time in 2017, but it's interesting because even before he became manager of the Phillies, everybody I've ever asked about Rob Thompson, who's had any coming across with him, it's one thing to say, oh, he's a good guy, and literally there's a glow about what kind of human he is. I see you nodding. What stood out to you in that time where you played for the Yankees? He's the bench coach, that tells you that, yeah, you know what? I'm not surprised that he's doing this with Philly.
Well, Casey, with all due respect to Joe, almost all of our scouting meetings, areas, you have this meeting. The position players are all in on this meeting, and you go over what they're doing, and sort of, you talk about the other team's pitchers, and you talk about the running game, do this scouting report. And Rob ran all those things. In spring training, Rob ran spring training. In 17, my family was in Jupiter, which is across the state, and planning out when I was going to play. And hey, you can go home. I'm going to give you this day off. We have an off day after the game. You'll have 2 days at home in Jupiter. Come back, meet us in this place. And he was just immediately so endearing to, like, just a good guy. Like, hey, I want to help you be around your family as much as you can, get your work in. A really good, I don't know, just a good vibe to how people in general. And then obviously has a ton of baseball knowledge. He's been around. He pays close attention. He's he's very even keel, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. Funny. He's one of those guys, when you come across, you want to spend time with him. You want to hang out. You want to, and I really, really enjoyed my time with Rob. I'm not surprised. I thought, that if he ever got a chance to manage, would do a good. And obviously, it helps that they have really good players that have all gotten healthy. And but as far as he's an awesome guy. I'm thrilled for him.
Yeah, look, me too, and that seems to be the resounding thought. I want to close with this, and I appreciate your last thing. You played the right way, did all the right things in the game. That's such as lip service you did. And like many other people, watched what transpired with those Astros teams, had to face them up 3-2 in a series, lost them. Everybody's talked about it a million times. Fans keep asking me this, and I then keep turning it to players and writers who cover it because I don't really know the answer. They ask, like, is this still a thing? How much are people watching the World Series now? Now, I'm close to Dusty and know I love him, and he says just everything you said about Rob Thompson, you can put on Dusty. So that takes some of it away. You got a lot of kids who weren't there. But being kind of part of that from the other side, is there still a thing where players who were at any point opponents of that 17 scenario, where they're sitting there watching and saying, hey, look, I still kind of feel some of the stench of that when I watch this team, or not?
Not really for me, Casey. Yeah, I know that they've changed a lot of the rules. I think it's impossible now to sort of come up with any sort of cheating. I mean, the catchers. I mean, I like to watch a game, Casey. I like to be able to see the catchers. It's just because I'm anticipating. I can see, okay, he's going fastball in. Like now, like
Oh, I hate the pitch
all that's
count. I hate it.
Yeah, so they're typing it in. And there's really no way to, that I'm going to cheat the system anymore. And so a lot of these guys, some of them were there, but a lot of them were, obviously Dusty wasn't there. Their general manager wasn't there. And so I've moved past it. I don't watch sort of hesitancy of whether they're doing it the right way or they're still cheating. I like to see some new blood in there from time to time, but that's more of like they've just six. I think it's six.
Oh, forever. It's amazing. I mean, honestly, you know how hard that is. It's amazing.
Yeah. So
in every year.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job of building a team that kind of builds on itself, and they keep bringing up young players that are good. And I don't watch it. I don't watch it that way, Casey. I don't hold any grudges. Look at it through a different lens. I just enjoy good baseball and root for my friend. Obviously Dusty, like you talked about, is an incredible guy.
Yeah.
Would it be cool for him to get a championship? It'd be cool. But so I don't like I said, as a baseball fan, I don't think fishy about what they're doing. I think they're above board, and like I said, all the rules that have been video rooms and all this stuff. I don't even think it's possible.
Dude, I love you. I appreciate you for doing this. Thank you so much. Give me time in the day to do this, and enjoy the series and enjoy at least, I mean, speaking of, top flight picks, you certainly know about one, considering there's a number one that's sitting there in your family. So enjoy the time with the kids, and appreciate you, Matty. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Casey.
Appreciate it, dude. There he is, Matt Holliday, joining us. We appreciate that. And, first of all, thank you to all the guests, to Jason Stark and to Matt Holliday and to Todd Frazier for hopping on board today. So many great things. And hopefully, if you're an Apple and Spotify, you got it belated, or if you get it live, you'll come back around to us again tomorrow, which will be Thursday. If you're listening to us live, you already know that. If you have to question what tomorrow is and you're watching this on Wednesday at 12:57 Eastern, we have a different problem. Tomorrow, Jeff Blummer will be here, preview the Astros side. Gibby, who knows where, from the sauna, perhaps. Friday, Alex Cora, Anthony Recker. Reck will be with me as well. Billy King, Steve Phillips, Ned Yost, all scheduled here over the next few days, among others. I want to just hit a couple of points before I wrap. The first thing I'll say is this. The Astros, to me, and I was asked this a couple of days ago when I was on with Sweeney, somebody had written in the chat and asked, so I wanted to ask Matt, because somebody who played against them in that 17 season and went through all of that, he'd have a better perspective than me. But from where I sit, and I know what this is going to sound like, I never looked at this entire Astros situation and said, Jose Altuve is a good dude. I'm sorry. I mean, he just is. So it's like that never really kind of stood out to me. You want to say, okay, you're Bregman part of it, and he's still there. But once they had success for years afterwards, it's not like, the Robinson Cano thing, which happens twice. I mean, I hate to say that, you fool me once. We'll see with Mr. Pinworm, with, Tatis Jr., what happens when he comes back. How long has he been using it? Did it get caught afterwards? Is he using it for performance, using it to be healthy? Who knows, right? But they're not doing it anymore, so that's not happening. And there's so many other young guys in the team, and the point that Matt made is the right, Dusty being there at the front of it. I mean, this guy's as, the right way as you want a dude and a human, and sincere, a gentleman of the game as anybody. So I don't really look at it that way with the Astros, but some people do. And certainly a lot of Yankee fans I know, certainly, who are watching or listening to this live or on the podcast side, certainly will as well. Aaron Judge, agree, would not be shocked. I'd be surprised still because of how bad the Yankees need him. And we'll talk about this on the show as we delve more into the offseason side of things and free agency in the coming weeks after the World Series. And I go to something, and we'll preview this because we're going to talk about this a lot tomorrow, that we discussed when Jason Stark and I were chatting earlier in this show. The depth there in the regular season of the 19 wins It doesn't matter. The two teams are here, right? The depth last year, in terms of, who had what kind of season didn't matter. It didn't matter in any of the years in the past because, some teams were wild cards, others were favorites. None of that is important. I mean, the Giants in 2010 weren't even a playoff team in first place until the final 4 games of the season, then won 1 of 3 World Series. All right. But I don't know, and I've been since 04, so this be 16 of them in person in a row, doing pre and post on radio or TV or both. And now 20 years almost overall. This is the biggest difference in depth of a pitching staff between the two teams that I've seen. And that's more about just how deep the Astros are than it is about the lack of depth, because the Phillies clearly, and it'll be Nola game 1. We'll talk about that decision tomorrow, and Wheeler game 2, as we kind of preluded to you with Mike Gill was on yesterday. They've got 2 dudes, and look, Suarez can throw. And on the back end, Dominguez has been great. I mean, even though he kind of fell into it in terms of getting healthy and at the right time, the stuff is back. It doesn't matter. Alvarado been right, even though it was wrong, was in AAA not long ago. Right? Eflin, even though he was a starter not long ago, it doesn't matter. Robertson was the closer not long. All of that is fitting in to where you would want a World Series team to be, and it doesn't mean the Phillies can't win. But one of the reasons, and the biggest one, and I pointed this out 2 days ago and again yesterday, and I'll say it now as we continue our preview for Friday, why my gut says Phillies in 6, because I'm a believer in everything that's happening right now with Bryce and with Wheeler and some of these stars, and star power still takes you. But why I said Astros in 6 is, and I said my brain, is because I don't ever remember depth of a pitching staff being this different between two teams. And again, I mean this, it is not a shot at Philly as much as it's a holy hell. Do you look at what the Astros have? The amount of answers that they have. The questions you don't even know you're going to get that they have answers to. The problems you don't even have yet that they have answers to those too. Doesn't normally happen that way. And teams that are not nearly as deep have had too much pitching depth for that other team to kind of get across 4 out of 7 all the way now this deep. Because remember, all those innings, right? All that starts to wear on you. You need more depth, even this week compared to a week ago. And the Astros are not the San Diego Padres. That pitching depth may, in fact, be the reason why the Stros win this series. We have a lot to get to as we continue with you. We will see you at noon tomorrow Eastern time. As always, we thank our guests. Again, Jason Stark, Matt Holliday, Todd Frazier, and the biggest thanks to the folks who make this and help make it possible. We are presented